Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass Podcast. This for UFC 295. This episode of the Dogger Pass Podcast and all episodes of the Dogger Pass Podcast are brought to you by Prize Picks. Use promo code DOP when making a new account to get a match up to $100 on your first deposit. Producer Megan on the 6, Cody Saftik on the line, 13 fights on the docket. Let's get right into the action, Cody. No time to spare. We got Alex Pereira taking on Jiri Prochazka for the interim belt. At 205 pounds. Pereira minus 200 or minus 120 favorite, whereas Prochazka can be had for plus 100. Who you got, homie?
Yeah, so this one, again, this is a tough card, 13 fights, but you can make a strong argument for everybody. There's going to be a ton of dogs coming through, and you get a main event that's basically even money. The thing with Jiri Prochazka is that he's coming off this layoff because of the torn shoulder. To me, that does mean a lot. You got a back injury, you got a neck injury, or you got a shoulder injury. It kind of means a lot more because you're not going to be able to sleep all that well. I know that sounds stupid to a lot of people, but you don't get a good night's sleep. There's really no comfortable position, and you're constantly in this ache. And if you're not sleeping well, you're not recovering well. If you're not recovering well, you're not training at an optimal level. And to think that he's going to take a year and a half off after a major shoulder surgery where Dana White said guy could possibly retire, jumping back into a championship level camp to jump back into a UFC main event, that's tough, man. So we can assume that he's not going to be the very best version of himself. He's going to come out like a man on fire. He always does. He's going to be crazy. He's going to be throwing strikes. He's going to be very high volume. And at any point, because he's a dangerous striker who throws a ton of just dangerous stuff. He'll throw knees. He'll throw elbows. Throw long combinations. He's dangerous basically everywhere. He can still win the fight. I'm just assuming he's not going to be the best version of himself coming forward. Fair enough. So he's jumping back in here, still young enough. Okay, he's recovered from the injury. He's got a tough task ahead of him. All of that being said, he's a defensive liability, man. He's got tons of firepower, tons of offensive capabilities, but he constantly runs into shots, constantly gets himself hurt. You look at his career before coming to the UFC, it's mostly UFC washouts, Bellator washouts, and PFL washouts. And he puts a beating on them in these 10-minute rounds and generally finishes them at some point within that 10 minutes. He's an offensive dynamo. We know that. But you see him get hit a lot. You see his loss to King Mo. Big overhand right. Rocks him. Not saying suspect chin. It's that the way he fights, he's leaving himself vulnerable. Guys like Wonderboy Thompson fight hands low. But he's sound. He's moving his feet. He's dodging in and out. Jiri's just putting constant pressure on guys. So fast forward to his run in the UFC. Feels like he's been in the UFC for a long time now. But he hasn't. Coming off that year-long layoff, he's got 3 fights in the UFC. Those guys, I wouldn't say the highest level of competition, but not the worst level of competition. Volkan Oezdemir, former title challenger, good gatekeeper to the top 10, I suppose. And he gets rocked a few times in the Volkan fight, but he perseveres. He takes him out. You go to the Dominic Reyes fight. Dominic Reyes is on a 4-fight losing streak, considered by most to be done. Ian Reyes had some moments, man. He rocked him a few times because he leaves himself so open. And then in his last fight with Glover Teixeira, Glover's the old man, the old dog, the old war horse. What has he got left in him? But Jiri fights that's one of the craziest fights I've ever seen in my life. And he hits a buzzer beater choke out on the old man to seal the deal. Craziness. This is going to be a wild fight. But I got a guy that I now still think is a defensive liability that probably hasn't shorted up. Don't think he's really upgraded most of his skills in the gym because he's mostly been dealing with a bad shoulder. Coming off a year-long layoff, there's going to be some ring rust. Right into a UFC main event, like everything's working against him. He can make it work for himself, sure. He could land the KO blow. It's MMA. We know that. We're fight fans. We love fighting. Could happen. But like the odds are kind of stacked against him here. And the money line's not stacked against him, but the odds are stacked against him. Pereira, meanwhile, I have this problem every week where it's like I'm always like, 36, 37, 38. What were the 2 fights I got wrong last week? Was going against the old dog, right? Angela Hill still had 1 left in her. It's like, and Nicholas Dalby, son of a bitch. We talked about it on the show, but whatever. Dalby still had 1 left in him. Pereira at 36, what we forget is that he's long in the tooth maybe in kickboxing. He's had 50 fights in kickboxing. He's been around the block a few times. But in MMA, geez, man, he's still pretty young. He's got twice the amount of UFC experience as Jiri Prochazka. He's been continuously getting better. He's been continuously making improvements. He's trained under Glover Teixeira, who I think would have a ton of knowledge on how to fight Jiri and how to approach this. And Yeah, just more polished, more refined kickboxer. He doesn't have the volume. Okay, he's a little bit lower on volume. His best numbers is 90 landed in Adesanya in the well, I guess 2 fights ago. Not the one he got knocked out, the last one, but the rematch, I suppose. 90 in that one, and it was a 5th round stoppage. So maybe he would have got 100 in that. But for the most part, he's a lot more selective. Now, there's a chance that Jiri comes in here and overwhelms him, but it could be one of those situations where Jiri overwhelms him. He's landing 2s, he's landing 3s, he's landing combinations, bap, and he's gonna get hit. And when he gets hit, it's gonna be an absolute problem. So Pereira didn't look great his last time out. Let's be honest. He didn't look great against Jan Blachowicz. But that being said, first time up at 205, I think his body needs to adjust. His frame needs to adjust. And now second time out, sophomore outing, I think this guy's going to be a beast. He's going to be a problem. So stuff the takedowns. That should be a lot easier than it's normally been for him in the past because Jiri doesn't figure to be a huge takedown threat. Although he has a grappling advantage, doesn't have that wrestling to necessarily take Pereira down. So if we got a kickboxing match, I've got a guy that's going to be throwing crazy techniques. He's going to be coming forward. He's going to be aggressive. He's got the volume versus that more refined world champion, glory level, 2-division champ, UFC, going to try to become a 2-division champ. For like even money, if you're going to tell me even money, like I feel like Pereira's just got a lot more going for him currently right now, right? Jiri comes out there and proves the world wrong and shows that he's back on track. Great, but he's got to prove that first. So that being said, I got to go with Alex Pereira.
Yeah, Yuri's got that dog in him. But, like, I mean, it's kind of sloppy. It's kind of crazy. Obviously, we're playing punchy kicky. He could go out there. He can land an absolute bomb and knock out Pereira at any time. It's obviously on the table. Like, if Pereira was a stone cold lock, he wouldn't be minus 120. Like, it's in the range of outcomes. Don't get me wrong. But, yeah, if it turns into a kickboxing match, sure, Jiri is going to be winning on volume, I would imagine. But some of his crazy techniques, some of his crazy entries and stuff, I feel I'm on board with you. I feel like eventually he's going to get clipped from a much more precise type of strike. So it's Pereira for me as well. And minus 120 seems incredibly playable. I'm not too worried about the grappling side of things. Like, he has an edge, but it's like I feel like Pereira's grappling under the tutelage of Glover Teixeira is kind of getting better every single fight. On top of that, the last time out against Jan, he did get boxed up a little bit, but the threat of the takedown was really there throughout that entire fight, right?
And it tired him out from having to grapple, right?
Exactly. And keeps your hands low. So, Jan was able to land some more strikes. I mean, I thought Jan actually won that fight, but it's a totally different matchup all the way around. Here, I'm with you. And on top of that, that's what I was going to say is that, me, I've been preaching this for so many years. That first move up from 185 to 205 is like the biggest problem, right? Because you've been keeping yourself supernaturally light for all of this time, particularly him, because he was enormous at 185. Now he's had an extra fight camp, an extra, 3 or 4 months to fill out that frame even more. He should have even more muscle on his frame this time around. He should be much better at 205 than he was in the Jan fight. So, yeah, Pereira for me as well. Moving on down, we've got the heavyweight title of the world on the line. Tom Aspinall taking on Sergei Pavlovich. Aspinall, a minus 120 favorite. Sergei can be had for plus 100. I know who I got. Who do you?
Yeah, so another very close fight. You can see both guys winning. This one, the one that's tough about this one is that we have to make assumptions on who's better after round one. Both guys look extremely talented in round one. We got Tom Aspinall definitely seems to have the speed advantage. He's got excellent footwork. I would say the clean boxing technique is going towards Tom Aspinall. If this was a boxing match, Tom Aspinall probably wins. If this was a kickboxing match, his opponent doesn't throw any kicks whatsoever. So again, Tom Aspinall probably wins. But that's all just like boxing, kickboxing. Can he carry that over? Can he fight into that second round? Can he fight into that third round? So far in the UFC, you've got nice wins, right? But also smashes Jake Collar in 45 seconds. Smashes Alan Bodo in 135. Those are the bad ones. Beats Andrei Arlovsky. That's the fight that goes to the second round. And that one still to this day is key to me because it's the only time you can see him in that second round. And he's tired. He's tired at the end of the first round. Into the second round, it's like, oh shit, I'm about to lose money here on Tom Aspinall. And he happens to hit Andrei Arlovsky, grab the rear naked choke, boom, put him out of there. But it was a little bit worrisome, Paul. And then he smashes Sergei Spivak in 1, beats Volkov in 1, loses to Curtis Blades by that knee injury in 15 seconds, and beats Marcin Tybura in 1:13. The longest you've seen him in there was the Volkov fight, 3:45, where Volkov really can't grapple, so he's able to exploit that on him. The guy's supremely talented, no doubt about that. But we need to assume, or we need to at least try to gauge, can he keep that up? And that one time that we saw him try, didn't go in his favor. Now you go back 2 fights, right? I don't like betting on a guy who blows his knee out in 15 seconds into a fight, then has to take a ton of time off, goes out and publicly says, I contemplate retirement because my knee's in bad shape, comes back from it, and then beats Marcin Tybura with a first-round knockout, and baby, he's back? Baby, he's UFC champion? This is the best guy we have out there? Maybe he's just in another case with Jiri where he still needs to prove it. I need to see him in a second round. I need to see him in the 3rd round. Be nice to see this guy fighting a 5-rounder before you said, let's throw him in a UFC title fight. There's just, again, you got to make a lot of assumptions. Pavlovich is the exact same. This guy lost to Alistair Overeem pretty quick, and then all of his wins have been very quick. 6 of them, all in the 1st round. So how do you approach him? I really thought, let's see if this guy can wrestle. Because if he can't wrestle, I think, listen, not only does Aspinall have that boxing and kickboxing advantage, he's a better grappler as well. It's the in-between. Is his wrestling good enough that he's going to be able to go out there and take down Pavlovich? Is he going to be able to lean on his grappling and go a 2nd or 3rd round if need be? That's what we don't know. But in Pavlovich's case, the one guy that maybe could have tried to exploit that wrestling, Curtis Blades, shot 1 takedown. Man, he looked like a deer in headlights. Now, I don't care I had Pavlovich, but we still don't know. Like, fighting is all about trying to learn more about these guys, and that's why it's tough making LFA picks or contender series picks, because for the most part, there's so many areas that they haven't been to yet. This is a world caliber fight, but there's question marks because you haven't seen them in those spots. So you can only base on what you have, and you just have to take a shot in the dark. Now, the bookies got it right. It's 50-50 because they don't know. And the betting public, they're 50-50 on this fight because they don't know. And both guys got a ton of great characteristics. It's just who you think is going to show up and get the goddamn thing done. And for my money's worth, I got to go with the Russian Sergei Pavlovich. I'm saying that because, 1, he didn't lose 2 fights ago blowing out his knee. But I just think he's such a big, heavy power puncher that he causes guys to get gun shy. And Aspinall doesn't want to get hit by this guy, so he's going to use his jab. He's going to use his finesse, but he's going to be getting bombs thrown against him. If it goes to his 2nd or 3rd round, Aspinall, I seen that one time, look tired. Since then, he had the knee injury. He's come back. He's had that 1 quick win. I don't know yet that he's improved it, so I'm leaning towards he hasn't. Pavlovich, meanwhile, you've never seen this guy gas. You've never seen this guy get tired. You're assuming maybe because he's so physically built he can't go to his 2nd or 3rd round, but anybody that's trained with this guy, they'll tell you that his cardio's off the charts. Apparently, he just keeps going. He hasn't had to go a 2nd or 3rd round because nobody stood up to him yet, but he could if he had to. And it's like, am I buying into their hype? Yeah, probably a little bit. But I think if things get dirty, I'm going to favor Pavlovich a little bit. I think he's got the power. I think he just hits Aspinall with something at some point, hurts him. If it gets to his 2nd and Tom tires, Sergei takes over. Good fight. Really good fight. Very looking forward to it. Tough to make money on it because it's very much 50-50. But I'm leaning towards that 50 being Pavlovich.
Yeah, I took Pavlovich plus 135 when it opened. The market's obviously moved closer to a pick'em. I don't know. I'm just a believer in this guy. Obviously the Overeem fight was super, super ugly. That was
tough debut, dude.
It was 5 years ago. Tough debut against somebody with that amount of experience. I mean, if they ran it back, let's be honest, Pav is absolutely knocking him out at this point. I think he's put in the time at Eagles MMA working on that takedown defense, and on the feet, guy is a problem. Like, if you're hanging out at range with him, it's just like he's more power. Like, the bombs he's throwing are just devastating. And on top of that, he's 31 right now. So that's 5 years ago. He was a 26-year-old heavyweight taking on Alistair Overeem. And like, let's face it, mostly this, Pavlovich is a striker. Taking on like a K1 kickboxing champion. It was a super, super tough spot. 26 for heavyweight is an absolute baby. I think this guy, the only thing working against him is, we don't know what maybe he gasses, but it's like, even the fights that have been extended to like 4 minutes, it's like, he's still trucking. So, I don't know. I think he's a big problem. I don't think Jones or Stipe want anything to do with Sergei Pavlovich if he gets this belt. Like they're gonna have their little fight, I guess, and then Pavlovich will just end up holding on to the title. Like that's kind of how I see this shaking out. I'm a big believer. Maybe I'll have egg on my face. They're both very, very tremendous prospects in this division. The future of heavyweight is here, and it's a super, super fun fight. I'm happy that it's happening for high stakes. But yeah, Pav is the pick for me as well. Moving on down, we got Mackenzie Dern taking on Jesica Andrade, minus 190 for Mac Dern, plus 165 for Andrade. I mean, it's not rocket science. This is kind of like, striker versus grappler match, a fight where if Mackenzie Dern's able to get this fight to the ground, she's always struggled with her wrestling. The takedown offense is a definite work in progress, but when she grabs a hold of you, the jiu-jitsu is super good. We saw Jesica Andrade against Blanchfield. It's like the moment she went to the ground was basically just getting washed up. But minus 190, it's like you're asking a lot from Dern. I think Dern has made a lot of improvements. I think I made a joke about it like 2 weeks ago on the show when I said like post-divorce Dern may be a problem because the cardio seems to be checked out, or seems to be checking out these days. Her weight cut seems to be in order. She seems a lot more focused than earlier on in her career. The 190 is a little bit scary here, but I feel like you have one fighter on the way up, and you have Jesica Andrade, who, let's face it, hasn't been the same. Like the last really good performance, I suppose, from her that I can really recall was like Lauren Murphy, because Lauren Murphy was just a sitting duck and just ate an insane number of shots. Dern, on top of that, has been incredibly durable. She's taking shots to the dome and is able to take that punishment. So it could look really, really ugly. Jesica Andrade could absolutely box her up, make it really, like it would be like, oh my God, I can't believe she was a dog. It was really one-sided. It's just like, but if Dern gets this fight to the mat or even spider monkeys onto her back or something, she's going to have a ton of success. Working with Henry Cejudo a whole bunch, I feel like she'll have a good game plan coming in here. She's not going to just hang out at range with Jesica Andrade. That's how she loses this fight. So I think Dern is the rightful fave. Minus 190, don't love it. But yeah, that's my pick. What about you?
Yeah, man, I actually agree. And the crazy thing about Jesica Andrade is it's like, man, when was the last time she had a good performance? Like all the way back to the Lauren Murphy fight, just like you said, right? The fight was this year, man. It was 2023. Like she's had this will be her fifth fight this year. And she wins the first one against Lauren Murphy. She lands 231 significant strikes against Lauren Murphy. That capped off a 3-fight winning streak for her. Wins over Amanda Lemos, wins over Cynthia Calvillo, finishes. 3-fight winning streak. Tons of momentum. January, wins. And literally, it's just been an absolute train wreck. Now, you can make an excuse for her and be like, look at the level of competition she's fighting. Tatiana Suarez, Erin Blanchfield, Yan Jinan. Man, tough. Let's give her a pass. It's the disinterest that you've seen in those fights. It's the regression that you've seen in those fights. She's not even all that old, but she's like the longest tenured fighter, women's fighter on the roster, I believe. She's got the most fights for the organization of all time, I think, at women's MMA. She's been around. And at some point, despite the 3-fight winning streak, despite all that momentum, huge win over Lauren Murphy, at some point, she just like checked out. And so it starts with the first one, the Erin Blanchfield loss. Blanchfield's very much a grappler, super young, green in her ways, just got boxed up by JJ Aldrich one fight before, right? In what world is she going to be Jesica Andrade, female John Lineker, the legendary girl who's just beaten household names, who's hung household names, former world title, a champion. She won a world title. Blanchfield boxes her up and then takes her down and chokes her out just for good measure. But her striking just looks so off. Her timing just looks so off that she fights Yao Jinan one fight later. Well, Yao Jinan can crack and does. It knocks out Andrade 2.5 minutes into the first round, like nothing. That's not something you typically see from Andrade. Where's that durability? Where's that toughness, that grit, that ability to sustain? The characteristics that got her to where she was. Gone. And then the last fight with Tatiana Suarez, another case of Suarez had taken 3 years off with the knee injury, came back, beat Montana De La Rosa up a weight class, dropping back down, is 100% going to out-wrestle Jesica Andrade in every case scenario. But Tatiana Suarez would look largely out of place in a striking match with Jesica Andrade. And she didn't, Paul. She didn't. She actually didn't look too bad striking with Jesica Andrade, who just seems so flat. Like maybe she's so worried about the takedown threat. Maybe you could call it anything, but like the fade train is building momentum and it's full steam ahead. And because she's a former world title challenger and champion and top girl of the division and long tenure, she makes the money. So they're not going to give her an easy fight. And this is not an easy fight. Mackenzie Dern, 30 years old, very much coming into her own. She's just coming into the prime of her career athletically. But keep in mind that this is a world champion jiu-jitsu fighter. This is somebody, jiu-jitsu fighter. It's so oxymoronic. Anyways, she was a high-level jiu-jitsu player, right? She's got a lot of competition experience. But does she have those MMA skills? No, not necessarily. You see her transition over to MMA, and there's a lot of struggles early. But she learns a little bit in all these fights. The Amanda Cooper fight, she looks awful, and then all of a sudden, boom, cold cocks her, takes the back, chokes her out. But she's actually got some legitimate power. Fast forward, wins over Verna Jandiroba, Nina Nunes, Tisha Torres, consistently getting better. And then that last fight with Angela Hill, she outstruck Angela Hill in spots. Her cardio checked out over the course of 5 rounds. She looked dead dog determined. Her grappling, of course, is top notch. She can get the position she wants. The Tisha Torres fight, she pulled guard. And it didn't even matter because it's like she's immediately attacking your arm on a Kimura. Looks good to the judges. Again, this is someone that's building on that jiu-jitsu base and has added the striking. The boxing's gotten better. She's putting she's putting excellent work in with guys like Henry Cejudo. The wrestling's starting to improve a lot. I do feel like Dern is coming into her own and becoming a legitimate contender. And what she's doing here is getting a win over a former world title or a world champion, elevating her status, getting that recognition, allowing the casual fans to start to take notice, and then they'll build her into some even bigger fights. But this is very much a case of one fighter on the up and up. And Andrade, crazy to think that she's washed, considering she smokes Murphy less than 12 months ago. But there's a serious impression here that she's washed. So if this fight stays standing, right, it should be Andrade all day, but it's not, right? She's getting outstruck by lesser strikers than Dern now. And you just saw from the Dern fight with Angela Hill, she's adequate on the feet at this point. So if this thing wants to stay a standing match, I think Dern wins it. If this thing hits the ground, there's no debate that Dern wins it. Andrade has that one ability of maybe she's the stronger fighter, especially in the clinch. Maybe she can get some takedowns. And if she can get some takedowns, she's a BJJ black belt. If she can just stay strong on top and just grind out 2 of 3 very bad rounds, then maybe she could win a scorecard performance. But that's not Andrade. That's not who she is at her core. And she's not going to suddenly just do that. And as when I say she's also a BJJ black belt, not to the same effect of Mackenzie Dern. Lay and pray Mackenzie Dern, still not a viable game plan. So if that was her best chance of victory, even it's so null. So why not Dern top ticket this week? Because it's women's MMA. So Dern will be high up there. Just I can't put her all the way at the top.
All right, we got Benoit Saint Denis taking on Matt the Steamroller Frevola. Minus 220 for BSD and plus 190 for Frevola. Who you got here, buddy?
Yeah, so Frevola loves to shit in apple pies. Not you bet him shit in apple pies, but if you underestimate him, he's going to come through. This is a guy that's obviously very talented. He shares a room with Aljamain Sterling, Merab Dvalishvili. He's in an excellent room with just the whole crew of Ray Longo and Matt Serra over in New York, right? The guy's got the skills. He's got legitimate wrestling. He's got excellent grappling, solid jiu-jitsu. Submissions is pretty much on point, and he's got solid cardio, but can he take a punch? And that's kind of always been the problem. People will remember the Polo Reyes fight, where Polo Reyes never had any success in the UFC, but a very one-dimensional brawler that's willing to sling on you can knock out Matt Frevola if he lands on him cleanly. He knocks him out 1 minute flat. If you go back to Frevola's regional show career, there's a lot of fights that he won, but still got rocked. A little bit troublesome. Lando Venata dropped him twice. The fight ends up being a draw because of the 10-8, but ends up dropping him twice, not knocking him out. But it's a subsequent fight to the Polo Reyes fight. Chin looks gone. His fight with Terrence McKinney knocks him out in 7 seconds. Stiff. Not a bad stoppage. Stiff. 7 seconds. Now, again, these guys are good, right? You can't take anything away from him. Did want the distance with Arman Sarukian. So he's not like he's the chinniest guy out there, but it is a little bit problematic because I think he can win this fight, but I'm so nervous that he's just going to get chin checked at some point and he's going to fold over. Benoit Saint Denis is rugged, and if both of these guys are getting by on the fact that they're both rugged, good wrestling, good cardio, solid grappling, push a hell of a pace, Benoit Saint Denis can take one hell of a shot. Frevola, not necessarily. I think Maddie might be a little bigger once you see them at weigh-ins. I think he might be able to out-grapple Saint Denis. He might have that cleaner technique, but if this is going to be an all-out 15-minute brawl, he's going to get hit, and I just don't know that he stands up to Benoit Saint Denis' power. So this is one I'm kind of in my head. I'm talking myself back and forth on, because on one hand, you got Matt Frevola at plus 185. Like that could be my first dog shot. I think this is a winnable fight for him. The other hand is like Polo Reyes knocks him out in a minute. Terrence McKinney knocks him out in 7 seconds. Lando Venata drops him twice. Is there not a good chance that Benoit Saint Denis hits him? Yeah, there is. And if he does hit him, is there not a good chance that he's going to rock him? Yeah, no, there is. And so I think I'm going to go with Benoit Saint Denis, but I feel like a bitch. Feel like a coward a little bit. Feel like I'm just kind of rolling it back, and I should just take that dog play. But I think that this is going to be a brawl, and the guy with the better durability is going to come out on the winning end of that brawl. So got to go with Saint Denis.
Yeah, I'm with you, actually. The Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos fight. It's like the amount that was short notice for Benoit Saint Denis as well. The amount of damage that guy took. I mean, he was like a French Marine or something like that. It's like this guy's kind of built different. And Frevola has been doing a crazy career resurgence. Very, very happy for him. It's been tremendous, but I don't know if Benoit Saint Denis is getting knocked out by anybody outside of the top 5, to be perfectly honest. His chin just seems to be so much on point that I think he can take the damage, make this grimy, make this ugly. I don't know if, and yeah, I guess Frevola has had, obviously Terrence McKinney fight comes to mind. Some questionable moments in his career with his own durability. But I think Benoit Saint Denis just kind of like pushes us up the cage, and he's so strong for 155 pounds. Make this ugly. If he gets it to the ground, he can find a submission as well. Like his grappling is just so on point. So I think he's the rightful favorite. I don't know if I'm going to get to it from a betting perspective at minus 220, but Benoit Saint Denis is the pick for me as well. All right, moving on down, we got Pat Sabatini taking on Diego Lopes, minus 120 for Sabatini, plus 100 for Diego Lopes. I think this is kind of a fight where Sabatini seems very, very like one-dimensional. I don't really rate his striking much at all, but what he is good at is getting takedowns, making fights ugly, and securing top position. Diego Lopes, on the other hand, has a nice little tricky guard, but he's kind of a little bit too happy to hang out down there. I think kind of how this fight plays out is that Pat Sabatini gets those takedowns. He hangs out in top position. Lopes has a few, submission attempts, maybe even gets like relatively close in some of them, but Sabatini's able to get out of it because his grappling's is good enough, and we kind of see that rinse and repeat. Sabatini has a ton of top control, and time on top. He doesn't land too much significant strikes whatsoever. I mean, this fight's somewhat likely to go the distance, and like Sabatini's significant strike total is only 25.5. It's like he gets top control and he tries to control you. Like he's not really throwing too many bumps. He just stays busy enough to maintain his position. I think he kind of does that for at least 2 out of 3 rounds, gets a pretty boring decision win. Pat Sabatini for me. What about you?
Yeah, well, he's going to have to hope that the New York judges get it right, because, yeah, you got one guy that's just throwing up crazy stuff at all points. So Pat Sabatini will have the top control, but he's going to have to land some ground and pound, or at least try to improve position and go for his own submission attempts, because the thing with Diego Lopes, it's like a very fan-friendly style, but I think it looks good to the judges. When he's standing, he's throwing heat. He's got some decent power. He rocked Movsar Evloev a couple times standing, causing Evloev to just take him down. And then once he is on the ground, he's throwing up submission attempts. He made that fight way closer than it needed to be, and he was like a 5-1 underdog. So Lopes can definitely crack. That being said, does he have enough power to put down Sabatini? I think he has enough power. I just don't know that the striking is going to materialize for him. Sabatini has an excellent ability of just not having to strike if he doesn't need to. Got knocked out by Damon Jackson, sure, but the vast majority of his fights don't spend a whole lot of time standing. He forces his way into the clinch. He's got excellent trip takedowns, and he's got legitimate top control. This guy's, when he gets the position he wants, he's just been very, very suffocating and very, very dominant. Now, here's the thing with Diego Lopes. He cracks enough. I'm not going to say he's a good striker, but he's a decent striker. He cracks enough that opponents don't necessarily want to stand with him. So they're going to want to take him down. And his guard is so high level, it's so advanced. He's a legitimate BJJ black belt. He competed at the Eddie Bravo Invitational. He's shown in the UFC, especially in the Evloev fight, he can catch or almost catch just about anybody. He's super high level. So So it causes these guys to not work on the wrestling, right? Because they're okay standing and they know these guys don't want to shoot their way into the guard and they're comfortable. Hey, take me down. And that's his issue. He gives up 3 takedowns against Joe Anderson Brito in the Contender Series, a fight that he lost. His fight with Movsar Evlov, he gave up the 4 takedowns. And his fight with Gavin Tucker, neither guy landed a significant strike. It's one of the very rare, very, very rare fights in UFC history. Neither guy landed a significant strike. It's just he gets taken down like nothing, and he catches Gavin Tucker in an armbar. Now, it's a dope little win because Gavin Tucker's not a bum. He's a BJJ black belt. He's got solid grappling. He catches him in an armbar. He's got that ability. He almost caught Evloev, an undefeated top of the food chain prospect. The guy's legit. But Sabatini's just way too suffocating, man. So I think if you believe, oh, wow, who's going to get the takedown? 100% Sabatini. This thing's in his wheelhouse. You've got one guy in Lopes that stands 5'11" for the division. He's very tall. That center of gravity is very high. He's getting taken down. It's whether you believe his jiu-jitsu is so advanced, it's so high level that he's going to catch a legitimate black belt like Pat Sabatini. I don't see that happening. If there's prolonged striking exchanges, they're going to favor Lopes. If Lopes is able to rock him and capitalize on a quick submission, possible. Again, this is the fight game. But Sabatini's going to get the takedowns rather quickly. And when he does, there's just, I wouldn't say no one like him, but at this level, he has been massively suffocating. You look at his fight with, by the way, Jamal Emmers did rock him as well. Another fight where his chin doesn't look great, but the second it hits the ground, they play footsies. He takes out Emmers, who's we'll talk about later, looks like a good pick this week. His fight with Tucker Lutz, 5 takedowns, easily just suffocates him. TJ Laramie basically got TJ Laramie cut because of how absolutely abysmal he made him look, right? 6 takedowns, easy money. The fight with Lucas Almeida his last time out. This guy lands 2 significant strikes, 2.5 minutes in the fight. He just rode him like a miniature-sized pony. It was legit. I like Pat Sabatini. I think he gets the takedowns. I think he establishes top control. He avoids those tricky submission attempts. He avoids harm's way, and he gets the job done. Even money, not bad. I like it. So I'll go with Pat Sabatini.
All right, we got Steve Erceg taking on Alessandro Costa, minus 200 for Erceg, plus 170 for Costa. 2 guys who are obviously fresh in this division, both coming off of very good performances. They're maybe 2 of the rising stars at 125 pounds. I was impressed by Erceg in his debut against Dvorak. I think he showed that he's got a very, very well-rounded skill set. Costa has just leg kicks for days. This is a very, very intriguing fight. I'm tempted to take a dog shot here if this fight or if this line continues to grow, Cody, because it was like minus 170 yesterday for Erceg, and it just keeps growing on the Costa side. And I respect Erceg. I think he's got a lot of potential moving forward. But like Costa, the guy kicks like a mule, and I feel like Erceg's kind of tall, chicken legs. Costa could cause him some problems at plus 170. He'll be my official pick. I may bet him. We'll see where the line goes over the rest of the week, though.
Yeah, I'm hoping it gets closer to even because in my mind, it's closer to even. It's not going to get closer to even. I just mean, no. I hope I can get a better price tag on Craig Erceg than what they're currently Steve Erceg than what they're currently putting out on the market. This is a flyweight fight. Flyweight fights have tons of volatility just because both guys can go, they can scrap. They're usually very exciting 15-minute hard fights that come down to attrition. Both guys are going to be throwing combinations. Both guys can sweep and get back up and shoot takedowns. It's not a lumbering middleweight fight or a lumbering light heavyweight fight where it's smaller pint size. One guy's clearly winning the fight. It's flyweight where there's tons of action going on. So when I see minus 185 on Erceg in a fight that I know it's going to be close and competitive, I don't necessarily love it. Value boy side, all day it's on Costa. You're looking for some underdogs at this price tag. Costa is a decent shot, but I think I like a little bit more from what I see from Erceg. You mentioned that he's got these little chicken legs and he's open to the leg kick. You're not wrong, but Dvorak mauled his legs, and I mean mauled. Calf kicks for days, neutralizes him, and yet Erceg doesn't ever take a step backwards, man. This guy is scrappy. He took that fight on ultra short notice against Dvorak, jumps in here, making his UFC debut against a ranked contender, was number 15, I think, in the division, but all the same, top 15 contender on a couple weeks' notice, and he's like biggest underdog on the card. I think it was a plus 345. This thing's 1-1. I had a 1-1 going into the third. It's a dog fight. Like, he's coming forward. He's got a beautiful check left hook. He was getting outworked in certain spots. He was definitely getting his leg kicked off, but he was landing the bigger shots. He rocked Dvorak in the first. He rocked Dvorak in the second. He landed 3 takedowns. And in that third round, again, 1-1, who wants it more? Kid's 28 years old, UFC debut, biggest underdog on the card. He wanted it more. He scrambles. He takes top control. He takes the back. He rides it out. 229-27s and a 30-27. Somebody had him, 229-28s. And a 30-27. One of the judges had him winning all 3. That's what he can do on short notice against a ranked contender. Me likey, right? Costa, meanwhile, on the contender series, he gets that split. It's a split decision over Luan Luna, I think, but it's low volume. He does land a knockdown, but it's not like it's a big offensive performance. The fight with Amir Albazi, he lands 17 significant strikes. It's super low output. The one takeaway from that fight is his takedown defense looked pretty solid. Albazi's got excellent wrestling, excellent takedowns, and he only got 1 over Costa. So Costa, again, he didn't land anything, and he definitely lost the fight. He ends up getting knocked out in the third round, but solid takedown defense, low output. What can you do with that? A fight with Jimmy Flick is perfect because Jimmy Flick has no striking and no durability. You look at every single one of Jimmy Flick's losses, he is getting smoked, usually in the second round, within the first 30 seconds of the second round. He doesn't have a great chin. So this is a prime fight for him because he doesn't have to throw a ton of strikes, although he did. And he did knock out Jimmy Flick. Is that Flick is live or die by these flying triangles, this optimistic jiu-jitsu, this I might be able to catch the guy in something. So when he shot takedowns, he was able to use his rock solid takedown defense and keep the fight standing. And now Flick can't stand with you because he can't take a punch. So that's going to make Costa look good. And he does look good. Now he's taking on someone in Ecker, who I think he's got way more durability. I think he's going to be able to press forward. He's going to be able to fight a hard 15, take you into deep water as need be. He can sprinkle in the wrestling if need be, throw some takedowns into the mix, kind of persuade the judges. He's getting a full training camp out of this. And Costa, to me, I don't know, power. Is power going to get the job done, or do I want the guy that looks like he's got some dog in him, right? So for that reason, Steve Erceg, he's got the dog in him, man. He's got the dog in him, and I'm gonna have to play him this week. I don't like the money line right now. Don't like it whatsoever. And that's why I think you're seeing some money come into Costa, because other people are feeling like there's some pretty solid plus money out here on the underdog. Even the line out a little bit, and then I'll be adding him to the bottom end of the parlays.
Will the money come in on him is the real question, Cody.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Maybe it did move back. Or wait, no, it didn't. I mean, the book that I take the odds from tends to be like the market mover. Because I the pro and producer in me, I go, we do this show on a Wednesday night. If somebody's watching on a Thursday, I want it closest to what, is accurate at that time. So I always it's hanging out at minus 193 at the, I don't know. People like themselves some Erceg. I think both of these guys are great. I just think, at the current price, it's dog or pass.
It could be, honestly, it could be a good live betting spot as well. If you think that Costa's going to start slowing down and he has that big first round and he lands those big shots, maybe Steve Erceg starts to turn the tide and take over late. And it's a good live betting spot. But I think if he wins the first round, you're never going to see that line again. And it'll probably start just treading towards his direction. But scrappy flyweight fight, man. So you kind of got to expect the unexpected.
Hondo P. All right, moving on down. We got Loopy Godinez taking on Tabatha Ricci. Loopy, minus 170 favorite. Tabatha can be had for plus 150. Who you got?
Yeah, Loopy Godinez, to me, another fighter that's coming into her own. Ring IQ seems to be the only thing you can really falter for, because she's got excellent boxing combinations, excellent footwork, puts pressure on fighters. She can throw up over 100 significant strikes. She's got that volume. Power, nobody in the division's got crippling power, so it's not like she's out of her element by any stretch, but solid wrestling that she can mix in. I mean, she gets a whole lot of takedowns. She's good in the clinch as well. Cardio over 15-minute fights seems to be all there. Sometimes she just makes those bonehead decisions. Sometimes she decides, I'm not going to take down Angela Hill. I'm just going to give her only path of victory and stand with her. The Jessica Panay fight, just like giving up her back and just letting the time tick off the clock. It's not how you want to fight. So there's been times where it's like, I'm not fully on her, but yeah, 3-5 winning streak. She's been looking good. The fight with Cynthia Calvillo, she didn't look great. The Emily Ducote fight, man, 192 significant strikes landed. Ducote's no joke. Former Invicta FC champion, former Bellator title contender, someone that brings it every time out. Solid BJJ black belt, collegiate wrestling background. I like Ducote. In that fight, Godinez just looked way bigger than her. And every time Ducote would step in the pocket to let her own hands rip, it's like you had her, Godinez just going after it. As I said, 15-minute cardio, it's there all day, and she can push that pace on you. Her fight with Elise Reed, her last time out, why would you want to stand with Elise Reed? So she doesn't. And to me, this is like we call it in Canada, the TSN turning point. That's when I was a kid. They always had it on TV, so I've always stuck with me. The TSN turning point where it's like that light bulb switch for her. It's like she shot the takedowns against Elise Reed.
Mm-hmm.
The ring IQ is finally coming together. Because there was a genuine concern that she might decide, why not box her up? Why not have some fun here? It's like, take away their highest path of victory. Take it away. Nullify their game. Do what you need to do. And against Tabatha Ricci, she's going to have the size advantage. I think she's got a striking advantage. I think she's got a sheer wrestling advantage, strength advantage. Ricci's very crafty, excellent jiu-jitsu. She's got a little bit of judo. She might be able to throw her, but I think the size advantage is going to be a big deal here. Because if she doesn't take down Godinez, which I don't think she will, she's going to get boxed up. The combinations will be there. The volume will be there. The pressure will be there. Godinez wins. So the only thing that's crazy about this card this week is like, I like Godinez. I also like Mackenzie Dern. So it's like, how could this possibly go wrong, Paul? Something may, but I'm hoping it doesn't. I will take Godinez.
I think Godinez wins a striking battle and edges it on volume. I'm not too confident in placing a bet. Just because, in fairness to Ricci, she had been very, very low volume until her last fight against Jillian Robertson. She finally broke, 100 significant strikes in that fight. So maybe that's something she's adding to her game. Obviously, Godinez, we've seen in some fights get up to like 130. And against like a very, very skilled veteran in Angela Hill, she was able to go tit for tat. She fought very dumb there because she should have utilized the wrestling. But yeah, no, I kind of think that this fight, the wrestling's going to basically be negated and Loopy's going to win on volume. But the line kind of is set up in a way that, like, New York, too, bad commission. Who knows how it goes when we get down to
bad
the scorecard.
Commission, yeah.
Bad commission.
That's a fact, man. You're going to have to consider that. My only thing I'll counter with was that Jillian Robertson fight. Robertson was posing nothing. I didn't quit on herself, but she just basically accepted the beating. She was allowing herself to just lie there, and Tabatha Ricci racks up strikes on her. I feel like Godinez is going to fight back, but yeah, women's MMA. Pat would slap me in the face and just tell me to take that plus money, but I can't do it.
Hondo P. All right, moving on down. We got Mateusz Rebecki taking on Roosevelt Roberts. Rebecki, a minus 650 favorite. Roberts can be had for plus 475. Roberts was obviously on the most recent season of The Ultimate Fighter. He's, coming in on short notice here. Nurul Aliyev was pulled out. I think he had like a leg injury or something like that. Rebecki isn't just a prop. We've talked about him, obviously, throughout his entire thing. It's like, this guy already came to the UFC, and it's just like, there's prospects, and it's just like, oh, he's really got to work on this. He's got to work on that, but there's upside. It's just like, this guy already seems like a pretty finished product at this point. Grappling is on point if he wants to go there. He's tough as nails, hits hard. I think Rowe is in for a bad night, but happy to see him back in the UFC. Happy to see that, after he takes this fight, he'll get another fight, and it won't be against somebody of Rebecki's quality. So Rebecki should absolutely maul him. Make it easier on yourself and maybe take this fight to the mat rather than hanging out at range with somebody who's going to have like a reach advantage on you, though. But Rebecki, minus 650 is insane, but the guy's the goods. He's going to be a problem for most of these guys until he starts cracking into the top 15, and then we'll see how high the ceiling is for him. But Rebecki, it's hard to pick against him. What about you?
Yeah, I'll admit I can't call him my favorite prospect because he's 18-1 and 31 years old. But like, this guy's pretty much a refined. He'll get more experience, especially like at a high level, their level of opposition. But me likey, he's kind of a throwback fighter to what we used to like betting on back in the day. Those Nick Lentz's types, those John Fitch types, those guys that are just very grindy, very strong, very suffocating. It doesn't matter that you might have some flashy striking or you might have a cool little move in your arsenal. It's like they're going to bring full pressure for 15 minutes. They're going to grind away. They'll get the positions they want. And because MMA's grown so much, a lot of these guys have added their striking, and Rebecki's no different. He came to the UFC with what looked like a ballooned up record. He's like 15-1, but it's not. Fought a bunch of legitimate guys. He's got solid wins. He fought Dagir Imavov, which is Nasruddin Imavov's brother. The guy's the goods. And so far in the UFC, he pretty much has looked the goods. Wins on the contender series against Rodrigo Lidio, gets the takedown there, easy money, 3 minutes in, gets the submission. Nick Fiore, would I've liked to have seen a finish out of him? Sure. But it was just pure domination. Does what he has to do. And then the Loik Radzhabov fight his last time out. Again, Radzhabov is very much a bit of a throwback fighter himself. He's very physically strong. He loves the takedowns, a little bit of a wild man. But Rebecki showed that he's not just physically strong. He's not a Bartosz Fabinski where he only has that strength. You'll remember our boy Bartosz. He's got the actual technique to back it up. So I like where Rebecki's headed. This was going to be a nice fight against Nuro Aliev, another very physically strong guy with excellent grappling. So if you can go out there and maul a guy like that, you're starting to position yourself as one of the elite grapplers of the division. At 31, he needs a couple marquee victories. He needs a couple big name guys. Aliev's not a big name guy. Would be his compadres would say hell of a win, but it wasn't going to get him where he needed to be. Roosevelt Roberts has a bit more of a name. Was on the Ultimate Fighter. Is a far easier matchup. Probably does better for him. But I think if he goes out there with the game plan of, hey, this guy's a massive underdog, I'm going to have some fun in there and I'm going to throw down, maybe he'd get clipped. Roosevelt Roberts, as you mentioned, he's a very long guy. Him at his best, you've seen him back in the past. He has some decent striking. He's got some legitimate power for the weight class. He might be able to catch you on the end of a punch. Thing is, he's another one of these guys that's tall and lanky and doesn't have a great base. He doesn't have great wrestling. He doesn't have that ability to stuff the takedown. If Rebecki wants to do is take him, he is going to crumple him up into a ball, style on him for as long as this thing lasts and puts him away. Now, does he take a cautious approach like the Fury fight and just grind on Roosevelt Roberts and win all 3 rounds? Okay, can if he wants. Does he just overwhelm him with that suffocating pressure, lots of ground and pound, lots of positional changes? Yeah, Roosevelt Roberts is coming in here on short notice. Lost to Austin Hubbard on the Ultimate Fighter just recently, got released, didn't sign to the UFC, hasn't signed to any other promotion. What has he been up to? Clearly training, clearly waiting for a spot. But when the UFC calling and says, would you fight anybody on the roster? You're obviously going to say yes. Because as you mentioned, he'll get some more fights after this. But this is a colossal task to be jumping in there. Guy's 18-1. For you to go out there and spring the upset on short notice with his given skill set, which at this point is puncher's chance, because he's largely outclassed in the submissions, largely outclassed in the wrestling. I think he's going to be fairly outclassed in the cardio, simple fact that he's taking it on short notice and Rebecki looks like a problem. Where does he win? Puncher's chance? Okay. Is that enough? No. So Rebecki's 650. Let's jump on that.
All right, moving on down, we got Nazim Sadykhov taking on Viacheslav Borshchev, -120 for Sadykhov, +100 for Borshchev. I love fading Borshchev against guys that can wrestle. I know that Sadykhov is in a room with a whole bunch of guys that can wrestle, but I haven't really seen him put it together in the octagon. So there is, I understand why Borshchev was a bigger underdog literally yesterday, and there's been some movement towards him. These are the style of fights. If it's going to be a kickboxing match, the Team Alpha Male kickboxing trainer, he can win these fights. He can win this fight at range. The cardio will hold up if he doesn't have to grapple. Guy can't stuff a takedown to save his life. Is Sadykhov going to show us an extra little element of his game? I'm not entirely sure about that. So I don't know if I'm going to have the cojones to pull the trigger, but Borshchev will be the official pick just on the fact that I feel like this is going to be a 15-minute striking affair. And if you're going to do that, then it's hard for me not to pick Borshchev. So that's my pick in this fight, but I'm not too confident in it. Sadykhov could show off some extra skills that I haven't seen really in practice, but it's hard to bank on that. It's hard to bet on that until you've actually seen it. So Borshchev is for me. What about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. I think he's an underdog play this week. Gonna need some underdogs. That's the thing. Sometimes you don't get those big underdogs, but you got a lot of these near even money play. You get a couple of these even money plays. Borshchev is not an underdog. He's closer to an even money play. But because everybody always wants to know underdogs. Yeah, I think Borshchev. Sadykhov, as you mentioned, he's in a room with all those guys, but he's not shown that same propensity to grapple. I mean, with Aljamain Sterling, that's his go-to. If he doesn't grapple, well, you've seen what happens. With Murad Dvalishvili, guy can strike, but he's also gotten rocked in the past. Like wrestle, they wrestle heavy, they grapple heavy. Frevola, suspect chin, wrestle, grapple heavy need be, put that pressure on guys. Sadykhov's got that pressure, but he's more of a striker. That's where he feels comfortable. So guys are going to come to the gym. A lot of them already have a pre-existing martial arts base, and there's the way that they fight. Those guys like to grapple. Sadykhov, not so much. But as a result, is he at his best? Is that the best room to be in if your game plan is just to be striking the entire time? Maybe, maybe not. Counter wrestling should be there, but even then, it doesn't look like his takedown defense is all that good himself. So he likes to come forward. You saw him on the Contender Series. He took on, I have trouble pronouncing it, Admat Hassanzada, who's no good. Okay. Hassanzada then loses his next fight on LFA. I think he was like a minus 285 favorite in that spot as well. He's not a good fighter. Yeah, he did manage the 2 takedowns over Sadykhov. Yep. Sadykhov keeps bringing the pressure. Sadykhov knocks him out. It's a contract worthy win. It's a fun little win. Just doesn't mean too much to me. The Evan Elder fight, he loses the first 2 rounds against Evan Elder. He's down on all 3 scorecards against Evan Elder. He's going to lose this fight. A cut stoppage, nasty cut, sure, but a cut stoppage bails him out. Otherwise, that is a loss. And then his fight with Terrence McKinney 10-8'd him in the first round. He took him down, he took his back, he absolutely styled on him, and then he flat gassed, and Sadykhov was able to work his way back into it. So it's a good little win streak. It looks like a nice little win streak, but to me, I'm just not fully sold on it yet. He's down 2 rounds to Evan Elder. Striking is not elite. That pressure he puts on guys is not yielding that tons of success. His takedown defense isn't quite there. Offensively, he's not trying to mix in the wrestling. These are all problems because with Borshchev, it's not just you should try wrestling this guy. You need to wrestle him the entire fight. He gets taken down 8 or 9 times because he gets up. He's very hard to hold down. He's the kickboxing coach at Team Alpha Male. You don't think he trains with stout D1 wrestlers on the daily? Of course he does. He's in a room full of them. He gives up takedowns all the time, but he gets back up. So now you're assuming Sadykhov is going to do something that he's not done in the past, and he's going to do it multiple times. He's going to take him down 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. He did actually take down Evan Elder 1 time in that fight. 19 seconds of top control is what he got out of his single takedown, and then Elder gets back up. Borshchev would be the same. If he gets taken down, he's going to get back up. When they're standing, Elder's going to be coming forward. I think he's got the better durability. Borshchev seems like he's another one of these giant offensive threats, but like he's there to get hit. You can hit him. And lesser guys have teed off on him a few times. Like Sadykhov could have some success, but if he's coming to the table with 50, 60 significant strikes, what did he land against Elder? 64 going into the third. Borshchev's going to be landing to the body. He's going to be landing to the legs. He's going to be landing those big hooks. He's 31. He's taking, I think, a decent amount of damage in terms of like kickboxing and now jumping into MMA, but he's still only 31 years old. He's in an optimal room for sprawling, brawling guys. And I don't even think Sadykhov's going to shoot the takedown, which should allow him to just focus on striking. And that should give you the best version of Borshchev. Live underdog all day. Now, as we do the show on Wednesdays, right? So the line generally is steamed by this point. So I think it's going towards even, and you might even see Borshchev be slight favorite come fight time.
Borshchev KO, official pick for me. It's plus 250 at like the only book that has the prop on that right now.
I would take Sadykhov to take the beaten, but last because I just think he's tough. But
he was knocked down by Elder, and then Borshchev last time out had 3 knockdowns against the legend of Mahashat. So I think the pass there. Like if you get plus 300s, Borshchev doing that little Slava Claus crazy little Russian dance that he does
right before Christmas. Slava Claus might come early.
Exactly. Very perfect. All right, moving on down. We've got Jared Gordon taking on Mark Madsen, minus 180 for Gordon, plus 155 for Madsen. Who do you got here?
Okay, so this is another one I'm very tempted to take the underdog shot on Mark Madsen, but I'm gonna settle with the best way of attacking this is probably that live line, be the live line on Gordon. If you think that he can withstand, well, he's going to withstand the first round. It's whether or not he can start to turn up the pressure because Madsen doesn't got a great gas tank. I mean, we know about his wrestling credentials. He's a, silver medalist at the Olympics and he's competed at the highest level and the world championships. Great. He's an excellent wrestler. Wrestling doesn't necessarily make you the best fighter per se. And it seems like it seems like he's kind of struggling in that transition in between the two. He's capable of getting multiple takedowns, but he doesn't quite have that jiu-jitsu yet that he's sinking in his hooks and grabbing the rear naked choke. He's not necessarily grounding you for the duration of the round as much as you get back up and he's able to take you back down. The Clay Guida fight, they matched him up with a wrestler not nearly on his caliber. Guy is almost 40 years old and wrestled at like a community college. And yet you saw that he wasn't trying to wrestle Clay. Like, he didn't want to exert himself. He's worried about his cardio, so he relied on just jabbing the whole time. It actually wasn't a very good fight. It was a very close fight. Clay almost beat him in a pure striking battle. Not great stuff. The Vince Pichel fight, okay? He flat gasses in the second round. Pichel's beating his ass. Pichel outstruck him 68-39, got a takedown of his own. And then in the third, when it's like, you know, whoever wins this last exchange essentially is going to win this fight, he gives up that takedown. So that wins it for Madsen. Then he runs into Grant Dawson, and he got taken down twice. He looked vastly out of place. That's like a year and a half ago, or it's a year ago. He's much older. I don't know, man. I think he comes out with a good first round. Jared Gordon is very slow. He's very plodding. Again, he has a BJJ black belt. He comes from a wrestling background. He is a good grappler, but there's no way that Madsen's not going to get those takedowns if he wants them. Madsen's going to get them. Then he's going to start to tire because this is what he does. And Jared Gordon, like, the only redeeming quality about him is that he's durable enough that if you don't ice him quick, he keeps coming. He's got solid 3-round ability, push a pace, grind you down, land those significant strikes, looks sloppy the whole way. It's all about, can he push the pace? Can he make Madsen work? Can he tire him out? And I think he loses the first round. I think the second round is going to be close, and it's going to be, did Gordon do enough to win it? And if it's 1-1 going into the third, I think Gordon all day. Pichel should have won as well, truth be told, but Pichel and Gordon aren't totally far off, right? I think that same game plan can be replicated to better success. It's that he needs to be able to just push that pace and drown him. I don't want to bet Gordon minus 185, minus 195 right now when I think he probably loses the first round and I can get him at, he still might be favored. He still might be like minus 125 or something, but I think once he drops that first one and he needs to fight his way back into it. And I cowarded last week. I took Bonfim over Dalby, but Paul, you and I sat in here and made all the points in the world for why Dalby an excellent live betting opportunity, because he's a slow starter who's known for building that momentum and winning the second and third round. Maybe if he can withstand that early Bonfim beating, that he could turn the tides. He had never been finished cleanly. One time at Jesse Ronson, but that went cleanly. He's got that durability. And what happens? Exactly that. He takes that beating in the first round. He was plus 700 after the first, and he comes back and he takes Bonfim out. Gordon needs to replicate something similar. He's not necessarily going to get dropped and beat on. I don't think Madsen has that power, but I think Madsen fresh for the first 5 minutes. This guy went to the UFC PI. They were looking at him. This is a couple years ago now, but they were like, he's a freak athlete. Like, I think he's almost 40 years old, 39 years old. But when he came into the Performance Institute at 37, they were like, damn, this guy is a freak athlete. But that is athletic burst, that wrestling competition, that doesn't necessarily translate to a grindy 5-minute round, 3 of them, with a dude who died of a drug overdose, resuscitated, back to life, nothing left to lose at this point, and he fights like it. And that's one thing about Jared Gordon. So had he gotten the win against Paddy Pimblett, which he should have, right, it would look a lot better, but he didn't. So it's a live bet. It's a live bet. Now, because we're in the business of making pre-fight picks, I need to take a pre-fight pick. I'm going to take Gordon, but I think you'll get the better number live.
Yeah, I can see a world where obviously Gordon throws a lot more volume out there. But at the price, I mean, I took plus 167. I took a shot on Madsen. He's a little bit long in the tooth. Obviously, the round 3 cardio isn't quite there, but I think he can probably get takedowns, particularly early in the first 2 rounds, hold position. He's just so strong. He's obviously got the wrestling pedigree. And at the current dog prices, I mean, Jared Gordon, too, is like, he's not like a potent finisher. He's not throwing I don't know if he's going to gain Madsen's respect with his hands all that much. So Madsen for me at the current prices, to be perfectly honest. Like, Gordon, I know he should have beaten Paddy Pimblett. It's like, I don't really rate Paddy Pimblett all that highly. And it wasn't a great performance. And then obviously, you know, Bobby Green, that was the headbutt or whatever. But
Yeah, as a headbutt. He was going to lose anyways, but he wasn't going to get knocked out necessarily. And Bobby Green, what do we know about him? He's badass top 5 contender right now. So yeah.
I mean, that fight was done too fast for us to really glean anything off. It's the Paddy Pimblett fight more than anything. It's just like he definitely should have won the fight, but it was close enough against somebody. I don't know. I think we're talking about a different level with Madsen here. His striking is obviously a total work in progress, but and maybe the Grant Dawson fight kind of tells us everything we need to know about the direction of this guy. Maybe he's definitely slowing down a little bit. We'll see. But plus 167, I took a small shot on Mark Madsen. We got John Castanada taking on Kyung Ho Kang, minus 140 for Castaneda, plus 120 for Kang, who you got.
Yeah, this is another one where I'm coming up just short of that dog selection. Like Kang, we know him at his best. He's very, very solid. He's got a solid reach and height advantage in this fight, and he's got solid striking. Fairly dynamic guy, moves very well, solid athletically. His ground game, solid, very good wrestling, very solid top control. He's just another of these guys that just struggles in blending everything together. He's not the best like hybrid fighter. He gets caught in striking exchanges against guys he shouldn't be striking with, and he wrestles guys like Ronnie Yaya that he shouldn't be wrestling. So there's always been that little question mark of will he tie it together and come out as that best version of himself. You look at his last couple of fights, solid winning streak, looks decent. Dana Botgarel, that's a solid one here because Botgarel in many ways is going to fight like a John Castaneda. But see, he should have been taking down Baccarel. Instead, it's like you got a one-dimensional brawler in front of you, a guy that's winging shots. The other outstruck him 109 to 100, made it a close competitive fight, and at no point did it dawn on you of just taking that ability away from him. Now, Baccarel is physically strong, so the fact that Kang didn't rely on his wrestling there, it makes me think that he might not rely on his wrestling against John Castaneda, a guy that's capable of overwhelming you, coming forward, pressuring you the entire time. And honestly, I like way more what I've seen out of Castanada recently. He's on a bad little slump, 1-3, loses on the contender series. Wins on the contender series, makes his debut against Nathaniel Wood, loses, wins against Eddie Wineland. Then the win over Miles John, solid performance, man. Drops Miles John, ends up getting a 3rd round submission out of that fight, backed him up, landed the shots, did everything right for the most part. His fight with Daniel Santos, man, wild fight. Ends up losing, but they both scored knockdowns. He had 3 takedowns. You fighting a guy named Wiley Cat. It was a wild fight. Unfortunately, got caught in that fight, but you could see glimpses of a lot there. I like guys that are going to come forward. They're going to go out on their shield if need be, but you're going to need a lot of power to take them out. Guy like Daniel Santos, he got that power. Kang don't. He's relying on these low kicks and these jabs to try to stick you at bay. But if you're coming forward constantly, he's going to have the crowd behind him. It's going to be a raucous New York crowd. I think that it's going to be a lot more eye-appealing that Castaneda is coming forward, trying to mix it up, trying to throw down, mixing the takedowns. His last fight with Muin Gafarov, solid fighter. He lands 3 takedowns on him. No easy feat. He drops him, scores a clean knockdown, ends up winning the decision. Low volume, sure, but the wrestling there and the power is there. So this fight with Kang can overwhelm him. He does have the better volume. He does have that jab. He does have the low kick. But if John can continuously come forward and make this a scrap, I think he can stuff the takedowns and make it interesting. I'm like kind of on the fence on this one. If I need a dog pick, like if it was a gun to my head, you need 3 dog picks per card, I'm putting Kang on it. But I don't. And this is not like it's a huge dog pick. It's more of a kind of a close to an even money fight. Like there's not, it could very well flip and nobody would really bat an eye, right? So I'm kind of on the fence about how I feel. I think I'm going to wait for weigh-ins before I officially lock anything out on a financial level. But for pre-fight card, I think I'm leaning towards John Castaneda.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, to be perfectly honest. The Kang fight against Christian Quinones, that one was straight up. I was on Kang. Under no circumstances thought that I was going to cash that ticket in the first round with a knockout. He had not really, rocked anybody serious.
Well, he rocked him and then he choked him.
He's had some knockdowns and stuff, I suppose, over the course of his career, but he hasn't had one hitter quitter type of power. The guy's 36 years old at this point. I think it's it was nice to see him get that dub, but yeah, the Baccarel Dana fight was razor close. That could have gone either way. And yeah, he just kind of hung out at range, had a striking affair against somebody who the smart path to victory would have been utilizing that wrestling, slowing down, the power puncher. Definitely could have lost that decision when it went to the scorecards. And yeah, Castanada's showing a little bit of pop in his hands in some of his fights. If it goes 15 minutes, I would worry that Castaneda, and it ends up just being like a kickboxing match. I worry that he loses on volume, but yeah, make this ugly, force this up against the cage. He's got takedowns against Muin Gafurov. He had three against Willie Cat. You got to mix in the wrestling here, kid, and I think he gets the dubs. So I'm with you. Castaneda is the pick. We got Joshua Van taking on Kevin Borges. Van is a minus 200 or minus 220 favorite. Borges can be had for plus 180. Who you got?
Yeah, this is a great fight because it's two legitimate prospects. Van, 22 years old, literally just turned 22 years old, already 1-0 in the UFC. And Borges, 25 years old, Peruvian kid, going to start making a lot of improvements. Both of them are absolute bangers. Borges got an excellent right hand, tons of power behind it. Most of his wins, he's catching guys and they're getting hit in the ground. Right prior to coming on the Contender Series, he had fighting this Tiao Calixto. Fourth round retirement. It was supposed to be a 5-round fight. The guy quit, just like fourth round starts and immediately. He's just like, I'm done. Don't want to go anymore. Borges can carry that power through. He seems like one of these very strong, physically strong Peruvian fighters. I could see him maybe landing the more damaging blows, but for my money's worth, I'm sold on Van. I think Van has got the real deal. I made the mistake of betting Zhalgas Zhumagulov against him, and it was another one of these classic Zhalgas split decisions. Here's the difference in those Zhalgas split decisions. This one he legitimately lost.
100%.
Bunch of those ones he won. He should have won, and it went against him. And now he's taking on this 21-year-old kid at the time, right? And he was just to make sure I get this properly correct, minus 225 favorite over this kid, minus 250 favorite over this kid in some spots. He's supposed to beat him. The kid's 21. He's making his UFC debut on short notice. Probably not going to go all that well for him. So I go and I watch back some tape on him. His footwork is excellent. His timing is definitely there. Very athletic, very quick, very dynamic type of fighter. Young, still making some mistakes along the way, but his striking is there. His grappling is where he'd have a deficiency, but he had a nasty willingness to go for it, man. He'd be going for submissions despite the fact that not necessarily a grappler quite yet. He fought a veteran fighter by the name of Cleveland McLean, who's fought a lot of high-level guys. He's a 27-fight veteran, trains over in South Florida. Solid guy. And in that fight, he just rocks him straight up the middle with the knee, overcomes all the bad spots, takes the back. He's quick, he's athletic, he's going for it. Against Zhalgas, I didn't quite give him his respect. Not because I didn't think he was good, because I thought Zhalgas was a lot better than advertised, right? The guy's been getting robbed on split decisions. He's tough, he's durable, he's capable of throwing tons of volume, he's a rugged enough wrestler. And what you saw from that was Joshua Van, on short notice, at 21 years old, as a 2.5-to-1 underdog, coming in and styling on him. Did he get tired in the third? Yeah, but that would be understandable for a college kid on short notice in the UFC. So I think that it's only on the up and up. And now he's coming back again, just celebrated his 22nd birthday. The maturity is not quite where it needs to be fighting the best guys in the division, but it's slowly going to get there. And with Borges, he's only 25. It's his UFC debut as well. Van's got that out of his way. I think if this is going to be two guys that are looking to bang, Van, again, has got the better footwork. He's a little bit crisper. He's a little bit fresher. Borges has got that power. He might be able to go out there and land something. He might be able to, catch those more eye-appealing shots. But I think Van just stays out of harm's way the best he can. Lands the counters, mixes in some takedowns if need be. Maybe catches a submission. Maybe lands something up the middle. Guaranteed fight. Like, this will be a very good fight. This is a good card with tons of fight of the night type of fights. But I would say this has got fight of the night written on it because it's probably going to be largely a striking affair between two guys that have power, but not quite enough power to finish it right away. So you're probably going to get this thing dragged out to the second or third round. And again, Van, full camp, getting older, look good to me, man. So I gotta go with him here.
I'll take him as well, but I will say, yeah, like fight in the night props and stuff like that. The problem is Dana doesn't watch the prelims, and he's the guy who makes the decision. So
I'm thinking him that makes the decisions? Is it like 100%?
The fight of the night never happens. Like, I mean, the Trevor Peak one kind of told me everything I needed to know about that. It's like the early fights on the card pretty much never get even in, unless you have a crazy knockout, that may happen. But like fight of the night, they pretty much rarely ever give any credit to somebody that happened, 4 or 5 hours before. They always forget about them. The poor guys at the bottom of the card that actually need the money. But yeah, no, Van was pretty impressive against Zhalgas. for a 21-year-old kid stepping up against somebody with that type of experience. On a decent-sized card, it was like a UFC on ABC in front of a crowd, all of that. He's already got the jitters out of the way. Frankly, it didn't look like he had any sort of jitters. He showed up against a guy like Zalgas, who's fought tons of quality opponents. And I agree. It's like nobody's been beating the drum for like Zalgas keeps getting robbed in more fights than me. And Van won fair and square. It shouldn't have been a split. So yeah, I'm with you. I think I really like where this kid's head is at, where the direction is, and 120 significant strikes. It's only going to be better every single time we see him. The cardio seemed to be completely on point in that fight against Zalgas. So I'm with you. Van is the pick for me as well. Finally, we got Jamal Emmers taking on Denis Buzukja. Minus 260 for Emmers, plus 220 for Buzukja. I got Emmers here just basically strictly off of the fact it's like I don't really rate Buzukja at this level whatsoever. I think it's kind of interesting. Like this was like minus 320, minus 330 for Emmers. There's been some money come in on Buzukja. Kind of confused about that. I think Jamal Emmers makes a pretty good parlay piece. He's bigger, he's longer. Probably has the better wrestling as well between the two of these guys. Like I haven't seen anything from Buzukja in his Contender Series fights or in his UFC fights that really, outside of him being super, super tough and that he'll hang in the fight, doesn't really have like concussive knockout power. It's like I just don't really rate him as a fighter at this level. I expect his career in the UFC to be relatively short. Emmers for me. What about you?
Yeah, so here's my Denis Buzukja story, right? So I know his management team, and they get him on the Contender Series, right? They talk him to a great spot. He's out of a great camp, and he's got great training partners, and it's very easy to say this is another up-and-coming prospect. So they throw him on the Contender Series against Melsik Bagdasaryan, and like he got beat up, man. He got 2 takedowns, sure, but like he was not. If it was striker versus striker, he was definitely the lesser of the two. I think he got outstruck like 102 to 52, doubled up, loses the fight. Moves on. Okay, sure. But you know what? Great management team, baby. They get him back on the Contender Series against that Kelo Romero, who's one-dimensional Hawaiian wrestler. They each got 1 takedown, fairly low volume fight, not good. And he wins, and they do not sign him. Dana says, thanks, but no thanks. Which Dana, if you've seen the Contender Series, almost never does. All the same. Second UFC appearance in the Contender Series, no mas. Goes back to the regional scene and racks up 2 low-level wins, a 7-7 opponent and a 6-4 opponent. This point, fights are offered to him, and he's turning them down. Not him turning them down, is his management team turning them down. They're like, no, that guy's too tough. No, that would be a bad fight for him. No, like very pick and choose. So it was UFC Nashville, and they needed someone basically last minute, and they were just like, who's available? Dennis got excellent management. He's got an excellent team. So they throw him in there against Sean Woodson. And he misses weight for that fight. Despite the fact that he was kind of hoping to jump on the card, was in training camp. He misses by half a pound. And now maybe it was the bad weight cut. Maybe it was the UFC debut. Maybe it was the jitters. But he looked god-awful against Sean Woodson. And I mean out of place in every single dimension of the sport. He took the beating. He lasted the 15 minutes. But man, that was massive one-way traffic. He got beat on. He got outstruck 71-42. That part wasn't bad. It was the 4 takedowns. It was the him half curled over with Woodson just tossing him into the ground. He had nothing. His own offensive wrestling was non-existent, despite the room he trains out of. His defensive wrestling against a guy that's 6'3", Sean Woodson, not known for his wrestling, for the record, easily just foot tossing him, easily just tripping him up, easy just grounding him whenever need be. Tease off on the kid. Yeah, short notice, sure. UFC debut, sure. But like, he didn't even look like he had 3 minutes of cardio. Now blame it on the bad weight cut. And maybe that's all it was that bad weight cut. But when you look at his pre-existing fights, he's largely been matched up against soft guys on the regional scene to build up a record. The few times that he has stepped up, like a Melsik Bagdasaryan or his last fight against Sean Woodson, it's like he looks largely out of place. Now you got Jamal Emmers, and Jamal Emmers on paper, it don't look sexy because he's got losses that if they were wins, it would look sexy. His fight with Giga Chikadze is a nail biter. It's a split decision. It could go either way. If Emmers fights like even the slightest bit smarter than he does, he wins against Giga Chikadze, and that one would have been a really nice win. But his last fight against Jack Jenkins, thank God, Combat Press, MMA Junkie, MMA Mania, Sure Dog, Bloody Elbow, the Wrestling Observer, and I guess all three people at multiple of those outlets. Thank God all them weren't reffing the fight because I had money on Jack Jenkins. But quite literally every single media member, not one media member scored the fight for Jack Jenkins. So yeah, maybe I got bailed out of there. What I'm saying is Emmers probably won the Jenkins fight in hindsight. And Emmers could have won the Giga Chikadze fight in hindsight. And these are nice little wins that would have gone on to showing how legitimate he is. Solid wrestling, collegiate wrestling background, very nice submission game. Shouldn't be playing footsies with Pat Sabatini, but at the same time, if he stays out of harm's way, like he's got good top control. Cardio could be a little bit better, could be a little bit sharper, but he fights at a decent enough pace that going to get tired. And the striking's there. He had rocked Pat Sabatini earlier. The guy stood with a Giga Chikadze and didn't get folded over like so many other great competitors. So I think Emmers is a very well-rounded, very high-level fighter. It's that he doesn't necessarily always get the favoritism or the favorable rub. So you need the New York judges to get this right. But I'll tell you what, Jack Jenkins is a far, I don't want to say I'm so far better, but like, what are Denis's weapons? What does he pose the problem? Denis is not a wrestler offensively. He's not looking to stuff takedowns for the most part, but maybe he's going to try to box him up a little bit. He's going to try to get in the pocket, stand his ground, and try to work him with his boxing, which is everything that Jack Jenkins excels in, and yet gets backed off by Emmers. Emmers takes this fight to the ground. Woodson took him down 4 times. Give him a full camp and give him a good weight cut. Emmers is taking him down. And if Emmers wants to stand with him again, I think he can just out-volume him. He's faster. He's going to stay to the outside. This is a large cage, not a small octagon. He's got tons of space to work with. He's had lots of experience in the UFC at this point. And the one little worry is that he's a little, not, I wouldn't say banged up. He's had prior issues with some injuries, which have kind of held him back from being a little more active. And I don't know if he's 100% coming in, but like if he's, give me 80% coming in, he's beating Denis. So minus 250, whatever market you're on, doesn't matter. It's kind of in that range. You're never going to love something like that. But yeah, Emmers to me is like, I like he, because it's the first fight on the card. Again, I don't want to ever put myself in a position to chase. Chasing is always bad news. But like if the first fight on the card blew me in, I would probably rebuild in some spots. I'm hoping Emmers wins it, rolls on. I think he's very talented. I think Denis is, as you said in your breakdown, not quite at this level. Looks a little bit out of place at this stage. So yeah, sign me up for Jamal Emmers to get the job done.
Sounds like we're on the same page in a lot of spots this week. That's either great or horrible news. But without further ado, Cody, we're just about out of time. Hit him with the PRP.
Yeah, so again, it's not like heavy on underdogs, but tons of like these even money plays. Alex Pereira, right, which is near even money. We're going to go with Sergei Pavlovich, who's technically the underdog, technically dog one, but he's basically even money. We're going to go with Mackenzie Dern, Benoit Saint Denis, Pat Sabatini, Steve Erceg, Vladislav Borshchev is technically dog number 2. Lupita Godinez, Joshua Van, John Castanada, Jared Gordon, and Jamal Emmers. So I got 2 dogs, 2 even money plays. Like I don't know. I don't know why I take flack all the time. People like, you need more underdogs. Some of these fights are lined pretty good, man. There's a lot of like even action, a lot of like these plus 120, plus 130. Of the big underdogs, like if you told me who's the best considered a moderate size underdog, Madsen at plus 155. If he can just win the first 2 rounds, gas out. Who cares if he gasses out? He just needs to win the first 2 rounds. If it's 1-1, he's in trouble. Mm-hmm. Borges at 185 because he's slinging, but man, I like Van. I think the kid might be the real deal. Alessandro Costa maybe at plus 160 simply because, flyweight fight. But again, it's like Frevola, if his chin checks out, I think he's going to have an okay time. But I just don't like forcing spots, right? So yep. It is what it is. My best way of getting plus money is putting a few of them together on a ticket, but I need them to do their jobs. Otherwise, one guy could blow it for everybody. So that'll be the main task this week. I really do want to see weigh-ins because I think this is a very tough competitive card. I want to see who had the good weight cut, what the size looks once they're kind of squared off with each other. And as long as the New York judging is good, which it usually is not, hopefully make this a profitable one.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, it'll be a great night of fights regardless. Anyway, that is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. For producer Megan and Cody Saftik, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck. Ow, ow, ow. Ow.